Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. I had a good week of football. Well, how about you, Matt?
I'd rather not talk about it.
Why not? Well, you guys played Thursday night. I mean, as a coach, Thursday night, tough game. How did that go? We'll start there.
Well, short week of work. I felt like overall game plan-wise, we were in a good spot. And just sometimes you have games when you're dealing with high school kids where you draw stuff up on the whiteboard, and there's that old saying where it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. And it was just one of those games where for the last couple of years we've talked about Mo Valley's been a much bigger team than us. They've been outsized. And we've been able to use our speed to our advantage, and this was just one of those times where they were just flat out more physical, and it finally came back to bite us. And we started off really strong. They scored, we scored, and I thought, this is going to be the type of game it's going to be. But then we never really had the consistency that we were looking for. All of the festivities and stuff were positive. We had the support from the military. We had a connection that was able to provide us with the camo jerseys. So we talked a little bit about that last week. It was a really nice tribute, and I enjoyed seeing some of the presentation and the discussion with having Sergeant Myers come out and talk with the team. It was a really positive experience, and it was kind of a double thing for me because aside from the connection with the military, he also played on the same high school team as me. So trying to reinforce some of those things to the kids, that those connections that you make when you're in high school and you're playing sports, they carry with you for a lifetime. So it was kind of cool to have that connection as well.
Yeah, very cool. I did notice that the team did look much bigger than you. I mean, we try to share the streams for the game whenever you play. So any coaching strategies? Did you try to cut their linemen or anything to slow them down?
There have been times where we did. I felt like there were some opportunities during this past game that just with how they were aligned, I thought there were some things we could have taken advantage of. And in the previous couple weeks, the plays that would have resulted in 10, 15-yard runs resulted in 2 or 3 yard runs. So it was stuff that I felt like it's correctable, and I think we're definitely going to be in for another tough fight this week against Tussey Mountain.
Well, how do you feel going into that game?
Well, as we kind of talked about it as a team, I said we're kind of like a bipolar football team. I don't know what to expect because you have Glendale and Mo Valley where we really didn't play well. We weren't executing. But then you play West Branch, and it was like a completely different team showed up. And we moved the ball at will and made all kinds of plays when we needed to. So it's like if the team that played against West Branch showed up, I think we have a really good shot at having some success. Otherwise, it's going to be a long game for us because they're a very physical team as well.
Well, good luck. We'll be cheering you on. And we'll be checking back in next week, so hopefully you guys can get the win.
Thank you.
All right, now on to our big one. Steelers, something positive, upset the Bills. And, man, did the homers come after me after that game. I mean, I'm getting blasted everywhere. It's like, calm down. It was one game. Did you forget that the Steelers were undefeated to week 11 last year? They had the same problems as last year. Sure, they beat the Bills. I know. I picked the Bills to go to the Super Bowl and lose to Tom Brady. Tom Brady looked great. I don't know if the Cowboys are going to be a surprise, but we'll get into that game here in a bit. But the Steelers, nothing changed. Early season Ben. Of course Ben is awesome. He's been playing for how long? He's a multiple Super Bowl champion. He's a great quarterback. I wanted the Steelers to have him. I just don't know what he can do to last down the stretch. If that was a win over the Bills in January, awesome. Then make fun of me. Do whatever you want to do. But that game, first week, I mean, I'm not surprised. Let's see how he looks in like September, October, and to be fair, it's not like the offense was lighting the world on fire. The one thing that everyone kept saying was that they ran the ball much better. Steelers had 75 yards on the ground. Is that really much better? What did you think?
I didn't think it was better. I actually was kind of a little bit worried, to be quite honest. I felt like watching Ben try to do some of the things that he's always done. Then, like we talked about, like he's not changing his style of play. But I find it interesting when you watch how he plays compared to how Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers plays, because you never see anyone's even anywhere remotely near Brady when he throws. Like everything's out of his hand so much quick. He's anticipating throws. Like there's never, or I shouldn't say, there's rarely time where he's getting like tons of pressure in his face. Where I feel like with Ben, like every throw, he's like hitting it off someone's helmet. Like he's like jamming his thumb on somebody. Like there's always all this extra pressure because he's waiting for the routes to open up deeper down the field.
Yeah, and that's why I got the feeling like it's kind of the same thing. If they didn't block that punt and bail them out with a touchdown, that was the difference in the game, let's be real. So if they didn't have that, did you have confidence that they would have won with the offense?
If we're relying solely on Ben, no.
Yeah.
Like, I said this is kind of like a Pittsburgh team that reminds me of like the 2004, 2005 Steelers, where it was early in Ben's career. They were having like some offensive issues. The defense was playing outstanding, and it's like just don't throw the game away with fumbles and turnovers and stupid penalties, and you'll win the majority of your games because the defense will bail you out.
That reminds me, that 538, I think is what it is. They're like the ESPN sports, like analysts or whatever. They do all the analytics. They tried to put out, because you mentioned the 2005 team, they tried to put out that Pittsburgh in 2006 was one of like the most depressing sports towns of all time, top 5. And I was like, are you kidding me? They just won the Super Bowl. How depressing could you be? Like, yeah, they went 8-8, and then of course the Pirates were shit, and then I think that was the year before Crosby, wasn't it? So like, yeah. Hockey was bad, but you also drafted Crosby that year, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but you were coming off a Super Bowl that played in 2006. What are you talking about? They like had some of the Cleveland years of like losing LeBron and stuff. Like, yeah, I get it. They hadn't won championships with him. Some of those teams you listed or towns you listed didn't have any championships. Of course, they're miserable. But to have Pittsburgh on there, it was like, you got to be kidding me. You never had New York on here. Or what about the Red Sox? Like Boston, I didn't see Boston on here. How many years did they choke? I think getting close and choking would be worse, but that's off topic. One more thing, though. Did you see the Pirates Stadium almost completely empty? They put out... In
other news, water is wet.
Well, it was so bad that they announced like an 8,000 attendance or whatever, like they always do. And there was like 500 people there, maybe. They said, like, if you look at pictures of Altoona and I don't think they included Greensboro. What's the AAA one? But they said that there's no way that the Pirates had more than the minor leagues each. Like Altoona had a bigger crowd that day than what Pittsburgh had. So just sad. The Steelers fans, also keeping on the same note, the Bills now are making fans be fully vaccinated after that Steelers game. They said it had nothing to do with the incidents with Steelers fans at the game. I'm like, all right, then why did you bring that up? I don't know what incidents you're talking about. But like, you don't just casually say like, oh yeah, we decided after that game that was a little too rowdy. I mean, who knows what's going on, but those are my off the cuff show notes that I had written down. Because it's like, well, what are you talking about, Pittsburgh? Great town, 2005, that was a highlight. Who cares if 2006 was down a little bit? But now I'm like looking back through Ben's career, and it's like, who could they have right now that could do it better? No one. I mean, I watched Aaron Rodgers look like shit, and then I thought, well, if Ben retired and Aaron Rodgers came in here with the defense, because people are telling me the Steelers look great, look at that defense. That's not my point at all. Like, are you betting on them? Because you need the offense to score. And everyone keeps talking about Trent Dilfer. That was like 20 years ago at this point. I mean, it has to be close. If it's not exactly 20 years, it's like 19, right? Wasn't that like 2001 or 2?
Yeah.
No one is going to win the game anymore because the game has changed like that. You have to have dynamic offenses. Look at the Chiefs and the Browns. And then even last night, the Raiders and the Ravens, like kind of going back and forth at the end of the game. Sure, there's been some Super Bowls like last year that ended up being duds because the defenses showed up. And you can say, well, Tampa Bay's defense won that Super Bowl. But Tom Brady also had to play smart, keep the clock rolling, score points when they needed it. You're not going to win by Trent Dilfering it. That's why no one else has done it. That's why every team that gets predicted to win the Super Bowl every year has a great quarterback. I don't think Ben is at that point anymore. I just don't. So if he wins it, it would be great. I think he should immediately retire if he does, like John Elway. Don't even try for back-to-backs. Just say, like, you know what, that was pure luck. Battled injuries. Our team doesn't look that good. Even the touchdown catch by Johnson, catch the ball. What the hell? How many times you have to bounce it around? Like, I watched the replay at least 10 times, and I was like, this is the same stuff last year. Can't catch the ball. Like, you're bobbling it. I was trying to see if the defender had his hand in there. Maybe he did a little bit, but come on. Other receivers don't bobble the ball as many times as he does. So I'm waiting for him to step up and give Ben, like, some hands that can you catch the ball. Like, bro, help the guy out. I know it's not all him. I feel like sometimes I just knock him on the show. And people get offended because they have those highlights from when he won the Super Bowls that were over a decade ago. But I don't know. That's all my thoughts on the Steelers. Do you have anything else on them?
I did want to see Claypool involved more. He had a size. He had a mismatch.
He's already been having issues in the locker room stuff. He's following the same thing. You keep Juju around, and then you have Claypool getting into it. Where now, I mean, didn't you see those rumors? I thought we might have talked about it. Maybe I didn't. Maybe we just ran out of time the one day. But, like, he was fighting Minkah Fitzpatrick at practice. And they said that it wasn't a big deal. But Tomlin blew it off, and I did see a video where he's, like, shaking his head like, yes, it was a big deal, but I'm not going to talk about it. So then I was like, you don't make that head motion. I mean, he either did it on purpose or he did it, like, without realizing he was giving a big tell. Like, oh, yeah. No, that wasn't a good fight at all. Like, that was perfectly fine, man. Perfectly fine. And so then, of course, go ahead, talk about Claypool. But, I mean, it's another diva receiver for no reason for Pittsburgh. And he wasn't like that coming in.
He wasn't like that coming in, but I thought that there was a size mismatch, and they tried to, they threw one to him early, and Buffalo's receivers, they weren't even trying to, hide the pass interference. They were just directly just running into him. And he caught one early, and it was like, come on. Keep taking advantage of that mismatch.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, I'm looking at it in terms of them having a balanced receiving core, and I think they do. But if you have the mismatch, you can rely on it. I just don't know how much they can take advantage of it because they don't have, they're not using the ground to open up passing routes. You can try to throw to it, but if you don't trust your guy, because maybe he's not focused at practice or getting into fights, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, that's the one thing where you have receivers come in, you look around the league. How many times is, the highest receiver, the best buds with the quarterback? Ben doesn't have that. The people laughed at me for Antonio Brown and Tom Brady, and then I was laughing during the game Did you hear that clip where they were like, Tom Brady and Antonio Brown are best friends? And I was like, it sounds like such a joke, but I fully believe it. Like, Antonio Brown 100% thinks that Tom Brady is his best friend. Tom Brady probably doesn't really care, because I feel like Tom Brady's not the type of guy that sits around saying, like, he's my best friend, you know? But Antonio Brown strikes me as a guy that sits down and thinks, Tom Brady has to be my best friend. And so when they brought it up, I was like, I guarantee that they were interviewing him, and they just asked him what he thought about Tom Brady and Tom Brady helping him out, let him live at the house. And he probably just blurted it out like, he's my best friend. I love him. And then guess what? He's his go-to guy. I talked about trying to get him on the draft. I think he ended up going for $5, so I didn't have any money left in fantasy. But that was going to be the one guy where I thought you can get him low. And I was going to keep him. I thought I had him for $1. And I think I talked about this whenever we were doing like pre-fantasy advice, because I know I've talked about him, but I had him for like 30 or 40, and I knew I can get him for way cheaper because the way the free agent wire works last year, I picked him up, but I had to outbid everybody. So I had already sunk a bunch of money in him. So I tried to get him just in the draft. The guy that drafted him had him on the bench. Should have just let me draft him in the first place because I would have played him. Antonio Brown and Tom Brady, I think that you need to have a guy like that where you truly believe, like, this is my best friend. I can't be bobbling this ball. I can't be fighting defenders on our own team. I got to help this guy out. And that's where you see, like, Aaron Rodgers is like, I'm going to leave the Packers, and then Devontae Adams like, yeah, I'm leaving the Packers too then. And then the ownership's like, oh, wait, hold on a second. We can't have both our guys leave. We need one. I mean, Hopkins didn't have that in Houston. Like, he didn't have best friends. I mean, Deshaun Watson, he's out getting into scandals or whatever he's doing. So
maybe you don't need a best friend
when you have so many. But that's my thing. If you're going to have a guy like that, since you brought it up, that's my take on the Buccaneers. They have like everyone returning, which is a good sign for them to repeat. They have Tom Brady, which is always worth a repeat. He's one of the few quarterbacks that actually has repeated as back-to-back champions. So why not do it again? And now he has Gronk, who hadn't played, and Antonio Brown, who hadn't played. Now they have a full season under their belts, and guess what? They look good. They look good. The defense wasn't as good as what I thought, but who cares? First week, that defense can tighten up, because last year they didn't look good either. Remember, by like week 8, all the newspapers were writing them off, saying Tom Brady made a big mistake going there. But that's my game that I really liked. You have any thoughts on that one?
No, not really. I didn't really watch that game that much.
Oh, yeah, because you wrote your own game. I forgot that was a Thursday night game. See, you didn't even hear them talk about how they were best friends. They had a whole segment on it. Right in the middle of the game, I was like, holy cow. So awesome. They are best friends. In Antonio Brown's mind, they're best friends. Let's go with, did you watch the Raiders last night? I know you're going to get a lot of fire under this. I get fire for my takes on Tom Brady and the negativity around the Steelers. You get fire on John Gruden. So what did you think of that game? Did you watch it?
I did. Well, I watched most of it.
You fell asleep? You fell asleep with the best part?
I fell asleep. Look, I'm old now. No. But if the rumors are true about the end of that game, what do you think?
Which rumor? The one where the kicker, they couldn't find him?
Yes.
Well, first off, John Gruden, you probably didn't hear this part. I can't remember. So Brian Griese played for him. I didn't realize that Brian Griese had played for John Gruden. Like, he had the longest tenure under him of any quarterback. Tampa. Yeah, but I didn't know he was like the guy that started for him the most, they said during the broadcast, except for Derek Carr. So then I was like, oh, really? So Griese's in there. He's doing a perfect impression of John Gruden. And he's saying that he's so into the game that, like, he's just focused on keys or whatever. So the way he was describing it, it was almost like a setup to where of course he would have no idea where the kicker is. He's not the type of coach that's like more of a manager that was like, trying to get things in order, like trying to plan things out. And I think some coaches like are good at nothing. You see some in college that like constantly have clock issues that I bring in, and I'm like, just hire me to stand right beside you. I'll tell you what to do with the clock if you're so confused. But like John Gruden, I think he needs that guy. He needs me down there because he was so focused on audibling. If you looked at the next play where they ran like the audible or whatever, I think it was Greasy was like, they called that, or he called that in saying that was going to be a try. Carr played it perfectly. He looked like he threw it. He was like going to fall. Like he just tried to run it back and threw it off his back foot. And I thought, what the hell is he doing? He's throwing the ball up for an interception, but that guy was so wide open, I guess it didn't really matter at that point. Like it was such a good call that I think, of course, John Gruden is not paying attention. He's looking at the defense, who's subbing in. They just need to have more organization then. They have to have some other guy on that sideline that knows where everyone is. And even the camera guys are usually focused on the kicker. Because any other game, when you're getting close to a game-winning kick, granted, it was only, second down? Third
yeah.
I think they ran it. It was like a 5-yard gain, and then he's like, yeah, let's just send the kicking team out and end the game. And they looked around, and they're like, yeah. And then they still ran him out, and that's what surprised me, because by the time they found him, there was only 5 seconds left. Then I thought, why are you even running him out? And then I was like, wait, where is the ball? They don't have the wide hashes like college where they might need to back it up to give him a better angle. So I was like really confused on what was going on, but that was my take on it. John Gruden was paying attention to the game, not paying attention. And I even had this as a topic to talk about on the show anyway, because the Ravens had so many injuries that when the first interception, and I mean, the Raiders didn't look too bad. When I look at them, they have a lot of like issues where the balls are getting tipped in the air. I don't know if that's too much on Carr or just like you get a tip interception and you're like, yeah, we just lost the game. And then the Ravens fumbled it right back. That's what set the whole thing up. There were 2 back-to-back turnovers. The Raiders should have scored the first time. That guy got down to the 1-yard line, and then they ran the hard count. What did you think of that?
I'm okay with doing that.
Why? You're going into the game-winning thing. Just go silent count and do a quarterback sneak. Is Tom Brady the only quarterback that can go up and do quarterback sneaks all the time? I never see like anyone else doing it. Is he so old that that's so out of the game?
I do. That is my typical go-to call.
I mean, for real, that was like I'm like, what are you doing? They're running back.
I would much rather if you're going to do that, have the hard count, but then also have the extra play built in. Like you have something going in that you're going to run off of it.
Yeah, but Jacobs had that toe injury or turf toe or whatever he's going through, an ankle injury. I don't even remember what it was.
It was just he was being held out for preseason. He's good.
He was hobbling around. He was barely moving out there. And then I'm like, why is he even in then? And then I was like, why not just get your big package in or flex everyone out and run the quarterback sneak? It was perfect. And then they go back 5 yards and then they turn the ball over. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is over. They just blew the game. The Ravens start marching down the field and then they had their own fumble. So I don't fault Gruden. I honestly was going to kick it in that same situation because I like to think, like, what would I do here? I would have kicked the field goal. I might have ran it one more time, though. Try to center it up. Make sure my kicker was, there. But that's just me. Anything else you have on the Raiders side?
From what I think with this Raiders team, like you're starting to see what the whole team is going to be, and like looking at how much fire they were originally under when Gruden was first hired, you're seeing the difference, like of flipping what the roster looks like and getting the guys that want to be there in. And I think that's been a big change because you look at, like I talked last week, one of the keys was going to be how does the defense play, and I thought the defense definitely was showing improvements. They were getting pressure on Lamar and forcing him to go to have to throw under pressure a good bit. I think that's going to be the key for them going down the stretch, and I think like that's going to be one of the things you're going to see with Pittsburgh this week. That if they get a lot of pressure on Ben, he's gonna force the ball into coverage.
And that's one of the key games that I had, Raiders and Steelers. Do you think the Raiders win, or do you got the Steelers?
I am going to go with the Raiders this week. I like the energy that they're playing with. I like Davis's terrible haircut. I think
you're gonna make me have a heart attack over here. I'm
come
joking.
on, you're a multimillionaire. Just go have someone fix your hair.
But did you see him hanging out with my man Charles Woodson?
Yes, I did.
They kept cutting to it, and I was thinking, like, at first I was like, is he just sitting there? And then they showed a couple of clips where, like, Charles was, like, telling him jokes or something because he was laughing his head off. And I was like, are they legitimately hanging out?
Yes.
They're best buds, too. It's like an Antonio Brown situation.
Charles Woodson needed a best friend.
Because I was like, this is ridiculous. Because he's a broadcaster, but I mean, I guess when you reach that level, you're like the Raider for life, pretty much. Hall of Fame guy. So you're like, yeah, come up hang out with my booth. We're best friends now. But I mean, it has to come up. Like, you have to mention it. Like, come on, you need a haircut. Let me take you to my guy.
It's like if someone has like a birthmark or something. Like, did you cut your own hair?
LeBron has that show where he focuses on like the barbershop or whatever. So you know that if he ever met him, he would like at least bring it up. And I feel like there has to be an NFL equivalent to that. So like no one says like, hey, let's go. Or just grow it out. Like you can't be like, oh yeah, perfect length. Unless he has like a Mo Howard style bowl.
Yes, that's what it looked like.
I know, no one's going to get that reference, dude. Look up Mo Howard, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Although I think, obviously Mark Davis is the worst. But I'll go with the Steelers here just because they're at home. And you know the crowd's going to be rowdy, but let's be honest, the Raiders beat them last time, and that one time they beat them. Or no, wait, the Steelers win? I feel like they play every year. The one that really sticks with me was the year that Gruden had the Raiders and they were bad and they still beat the Steelers. So I don't know if it's really a coaching thing, but that's my thing. Going back to the Ravens, they have so many injuries at running back, and of course they had 2 injuries last time at practice. Do you think that they're running too physical of practices? Because I've had this thing with Jim Harbaugh running too physical of practices where the guys wear down. And then they see it at the Ravens, and you know that they talk and share a bunch of stuff all the time because they're brothers.
Because they're best friends.
Yeah. So what do you think?
I'm almost going to go the route of strength and conditioning. Because more of the stuff that I see, the more that I question, like what practices are being used by these professional organizations. Because everything is this is the way it's always been done in the NFL. And you see a lot of, like, the changes really happen at the high school level, comes up to college. And it's like the NFL is last to adapt to a lot of this stuff. But I think, like, when you're seeing things at the rate that they're going, I don't know that the practices are more physical as much as what's the strength, like, how are they preparing themselves to be better prepared physically? And I wonder, is it a strength and conditioning issue?
Sometimes I wonder if it's just like a freak injury type thing, but they have so many that it's like, all right, maybe there is an issue with strength and conditioning, and maybe it's with equipment, it could be with scheme, I don't know. But I also wonder too if we're going to see more injuries this year, because last year was kind of a weird year where they weren't practicing physical at all. Even now, the Saints have issues with coronavirus. They have like 8 guys that are going to be out. They're not allowed to meet this week. So you're coming off a hot win. How does that play into your thing next week? So I don't know. I'm starting to get worried, though, that it's already this early and you're hearing about teams having to shut it down, that we might have some weird don't play type situations. But we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that they can go through the season without having any big injury type stuff. Let's see. Some last thing for the NFL. Big games. Do you have a big game? What's your big game for this week to keep an eye on?
I think the Pittsburgh game is the big game of the week. Pittsburgh and the Raiders.
And we already picked that one. So I'm going with, as mine, I think that I talked about, I mean, you could easily go with the Chiefs or whatever, but I want to see what happens with the Browns and Texans on at the same time. Texans came out with a big win. I know they played Jacksonville, and we'll get into the Jacksonville here in a bit because there might be some coaching rumors floating around. But with the Browns, you're so close. Close out the game. All you have to do is close it out. Close it out. You have a lead. Look, come on, move the ball down the field. What are you doing? What are you doing? You need to take that step. It has to be tough for them to see Pittsburgh win the division last year. You're so close. I mean, you beat them in the playoffs. Great. But now take that next step. If you want to be the team that people are picking to win the Super Bowl, show us. Show us this week. Get it done. Get back on the winning side because you have the Steelers winning early. You can't fall behind again if you want to win that division. And then we'll see what happens. The other game, of course, the Monday night game. Is Aaron Rodgers actually done with the Packers? They brought him back. He didn't look happy to be there. Their team looked a mess. Is that going to be a year-long thing? And what week do you think they bench him?
I think they give him a little more time. I mean, he spent so much time, working on his hair and hosting Jeopardy.
Now, what was that one commercial where he's like trying to learn something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
Yeah, so he had a busy off season. It's going to take him a little bit of time to acclimate.
I don't think it was a State Farm one. He does all kind of commercials, but I say by midway through the season, week 7 or 8, he's gone. He's benched. They moved in that direction. They tried to bring him back, and I think it kind of hurts him, and it opens up that possibility for him coming to Pittsburgh on a redemption tour. I mean, they're writing articles about how he's away from his fiance, how that's going to be tough for him. I mean, let's see what happens.
Actually, I'm sure you'll be watching closely to that Carolina game.
Well, because I had to watch Carolina last weekend, and I had to divvy it around to try to get the Steelers game even up. But Carolina and the Saints, it's tough to know. I mean, Carolina, of course, they got the win. They played the Jets. You're not telling me that the Jets are a good win. You're just not. But with the Saints, who knows? They have the coronavirus issues. Maybe this is a no-go. Maybe the Panthers just win by default. I don't think that I saw a list of names yet on who's going to be out. But Sam Darnold is the guy that I don't know if he's the real quarterback. You had a week ago or 2 weeks ago, there were rumors that the Panthers were leading in the talks for Deshaun Watson. Is that the direction that Matt Rule wants to take that team? I don't know. But I will be keeping an eye on them because I think that they have a good chance in that division other than Tom Brady. Although it just depends on what happens with Jameis. Does he revert back to his turnover-prone days, or is he good now? What do you think?
I told you, dog. That's why he was my fantasy.
We changed numbers. He looked like he lost weight. I didn't even know it was him at first. I'm like, did they bench him already? And
you're like, no. And then he just reverted back to the year of 2013.
Yeah, not 14 where he fumbled that ball against Oregon.
Not 14. That was old Jameis.
This is the new one.
This is the new one.
Anything else you have for the NFL?
No.
All right, cool. Getting into college, we talked about it. I don't think it was actually official, so I just wanted to bring it up now. Not real long, but the Big 12 voted to expand. It was Houston. I know we talked about it. We weren't sure who the fourth team was, but it's BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. The interesting thing is BYU's been ranked annually. They re-entered the polls in recent years. UCF claimed the national championship a few years ago. They've been heavily in the polls. And then same with Cincinnati, top 10 ranking this year. Houston hasn't been. I mean, they're obviously adding Houston to try to take a bite out of recruiting for Texas A&M and Texas in the SEC. I've said going into this, Texas is making a big mistake. Oklahoma's making a big mistake. Why would you go from being the top dog to now going to a conference where you're getting your ass kicked by Arkansas? Sarkisian, to me, everyone was so excited with that hire because he went to Nick Saban coaching camp. How many other guys have went to Nick Saban coaching camp? I mean, I don't even think Nick Saban has a guy under him that has really been successful besides what? Kirby Smart possibly hasn't won anything. But like
Jimbo.
Yeah, but that's not. I mean, he was with him. He was at Florida State and under Bobby Bowden more recently than him. He was only with him at LSU, right? Not at Alabama.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Alabama's coaching, like recovery camp, where he hires every head coach, and tries to spin him around and have that success. It probably is only Jimbo. You're probably right going back. I don't know how far back. I'm going to look that up as I go. But my main thing with this is Texas and Oklahoma are now going to be smaller fish. You lose to Arkansas, you're going to tell me that you're like, what, a 7-win team now? A 6-win team? You've been like 7 and 8 wins in the Big 12. The Big 12 doesn't have that depth. What are you doing? They announced that they have that big expansion that's going to help solidify their conference. I don't know if it does, to be honest. What are your thoughts on it with those 4 teams? Do you think that boosts them up or what?
Well, I'll tell you what it doesn't do. It doesn't hurt them. And the departures, Oklahoma kind of hurts a little bit. Texas wasn't bringing really anything to the table other than they were a blue blood, and they have the money stuff from the Longhorn Network. But I mean, it's in terms of like the actual play on the field, I think some of these other teams are going to be able to contribute more immediately than what Texas was.
We'll see. I mean, go ahead.
I mean, this is back-to-back weeks. Texas is finding themselves in oh shit land.
Well, let's be honest. The Sarkisian hire, definitely underwhelming. I mean, they definitely went after Urban Meyer, and it didn't happen. And he seems to be like the guy that everyone wants. I think that they might have even been interested in James Franklin, which is also a guy that everyone wants. They end up with Sarkisian. He had already failed at USC. I mean, you could say that it might have been substance abuse related. He had his own off-the-field issues. I mean, actually, it was even on the field since he was showing up at functions drunk. So you're telling me that maybe the pressure of that job got to him? Now he's coming to Texas where you even have it. I saw someone tweet out that Texas is the best job in college football. That makes zero sense. Because now you have recruits talking, and one of the big recruiting things where they did like an anonymous survey. I don't know where I saw this, but it was like they always do it. I think it was like 24/7. And they said like the one campus that didn't fit in was Austin. Like everyone got weird vibes from it just because of like how the city is in regards to like the rest of the state. And they said that like out of all the campuses like in Texas itself, it just doesn't feel right. And so like you have that campus that sticks out as like hippie central. Are you really going to get all these athletes that want to come there? Or you can go to Oklahoma and not have to deal with that, have all your stuff, or even A&M, focus only on football. Texas has too many other interests at hand where they don't push that. Are they going to get NIL stuff? I don't know. A&M's been out raising them money-wise. Is it really going to be that much better than A&M? I think A&M might be entrenched enough where Texas has been behind them now. A&M got the SEC boost. Texas thinks that they're going to come in there and just take that back over, and it's not going to happen. It might take them 10 years. They might get it back. But let's be honest, I was looking back through their years, and even like in terms of like championships and stuff, like they weren't as high as what I thought that they were. Someone had said like even in the past 10 years since A&M joined the SEC, Texas has had the same record as like Missouri. Missouri had the same record as them in the SEC that Texas had in the Big 12, which to me is just a joke. You can't say that that's the best job, but yet your coach is like that. And then they're like, well, Texas has the pressure. People are trying to fire Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. He has the same record, the same exact record Dabo Swinney had at this point in his career. He has the same exact record as Dabo Swinney. And they were like, Texas hasn't even come close to that. that type of success. And they're like, we'll see. USC is the same way, which we'll get to in a second. But those jobs, it's like, are they really good jobs? If you're not going to get the support from the campus or the fan base, because it doesn't seem like Texas or USC has that, how are you going to compete in the SEC? I just don't get it. So they're leaving. BYU's coming in. I think BYU is the big catch. The one negative I hear, it seems to come from a lot of West Virginia fans I talk to, and I think that that's just because West Virginia is scared, because they think that BYU is going to do to the Big 12 what Notre Dame did to the Big East, where they're kind of leeching it out. They're not playing on Sundays or whatever other rules that they have. But I don't think so, because BYU, to them, this is a lifeline. Utah left for the Pac-12, kind of left BYU in the dust. They kind of came out independent after that because they realized it wasn't going to work where they were. I think they were they with Boise? I can't remember if that's where they were or not. But when Utah got that call up, BYU's been struggling ever since, so I don't think that they're going to come out there and really go crazy with anything. They have the biggest stadium. I also saw some bullshit that someone was putting out there where they were saying that BYU doesn't get eyeballs, and then someone else put out the direct comparison with even the Texas games. BYU was averaging between 1 and 3 million people. That's more than most Big 12 teams. So what are you talking about? They're the team that is pretty much, to me, the most valuable. Cincinnati might be ranked right now. Cincinnati would not be ranked if they played a full Big 12 schedule. They would not be ranked that high. Write that down. Same with UCF. I think you're going to see those two schools take a jump back. I don't know about Houston. They have Holgerson. They're going to pretty much fire him, I would think. I don't know what they're doing. But Houston, to me, is kind of just like adding a bottom feeder to the program where they just bring the media market. They're like the Rutgers of this deal.
I think it's funny because you have the Big 12 that was like, Holgerson, get out of here. We don't want you in your air raid. And then he's like, he walks out the front door and then just walks around the house and comes in the back door like, hey guys, here I am again. He's in Houston.
He's going to be fired though because he's been so bad there. I mean, that's the one thing where it's like, all right, what are you going to do? But that's where the Big 12 needs to step up. Now you're going to have, no identity for the next couple years? It's looking like all these teams are going to join not next year, but the following year, while Texas and Oklahoma are still in the conference. If I were them, I would make sure that Texas and Oklahoma are in the same division, even if it's for only 1 year, because you don't want a Texas-Oklahoma championship game. Let's be honest. That would be the worst parting gift you could give yourself, where you're like, hey, remember how we had that great championship game? Yeah, we don't have either of those teams anymore. All right. So I would go ahead, put them, I don't even know if I'd put them in the easier division. I don't know what they would do. But I like West Virginia. I hope that they don't get left behind. I think it comes down to money, which we don't know. I saw some of the projections where they dropped from, right now the Big 12 makes the third most money. It's the Big 10, number 1, SEC, number 2. The Big 12 was right behind them, with Texas taking the most because they didn't have an even split. If they do an even split now, it's looking like they're going to be slightly behind the ACC. That's what I've seen rumor-wise. So they would pretty much be the 4th conference ahead of the Pac-12, which can you imagine if you're the Pac-12 and this half-weird conference that stretches from West Virginia all the way to Utah makes more money than you? Like, how embarrassing is that? Especially because the Pac-12 has the most national championships. That's like their ad. The Conference of Champions, it's like, nah, no one watches, no one cares. Claim all those polo championships or whatever else you want to claim. But that's
say whatever you want.
So that's my thing. I'm hoping that it does stay solid. I don't know what other conferences would do. Like, I don't think the ACC is going to move just because all those teams are locked in. It doesn't look like the Big Ten and the SEC are going to move because both conferences said they were investigating it. Kansas and Iowa State begged to join the Big Ten, and they're kind of like, no. And then those other teams begged to join the Pac-12, and they said no, which is even funnier now that the Big 12 might make more money than them. The next step that I did see is possibly they don't want to be left behind even more. So the next rumor, and I don't know how true this is once these 4 teams get locked in, they're going to continue to expand either to 14 or they might be the first conference to 16. To me, that's a smart move. Because unless, like, let's say Notre Dame and calls West Virginia and says, hey, we're going to the ACC, then you lose one other team. But if that call doesn't happen and the other conferences stay, I don't think they get rid of the Big 12's New Year's 6 automatic bid if they go to 16 teams with pretty much the best of. If it was me picking, it would be Boise State. That's who they've been rumored to talk to anyway. Possibly Memphis. I think that would get them to 14, right? They had 8 plus 4, so that's 14. So if they were going to go to 16, I don't know, do you add South Florida? They've kind of fallen off. Maybe East Carolina. I don't know where you would get the 16th team that would be the biggest of the best. Do you go App State? App State, USF, UA, or Florida AU, FAU? I don't know. I'm getting lost. That's when you get to the alphabet soup, and I don't remember. Do they go basketball and just add UConn? They're way up there. But in terms of like having a conference that's good in basketball, keep Kansas happy, you're adding Cincinnati, you're adding BYU, which was like the only other good team in Gonzaga's conference. Then you bring in UConn. I think that would keep Kansas pretty happy. But I don't know. Any other thoughts you have on it?
No, because I know that there's a lot going into these conference realignments that are bigger than just what's good for football. I mean, they have to be looking at all across all sports and across the what the colleges are bringing into, like as far as the academics.
Well, that's a good thing. I forgot to mention it, but the early rumors that was BYU was coming in football only, and that's where I had some concerns about Notre Dame type stuff, where they're going to be putting in all these demands because they were adding so much to the TV value. They're in for all sports. I think that they saw what happened to Utah. When they were announced, they were tweeting at Utah. At least I don't know. I think they were official accounts. Who knows what I saw? But they're ready. They know that now that they're in a Power 5 conference that they can take shots at them. They beat them to get ranked. I think they just beat Utah. Yeah. I'm not losing my mind. I watched the game. So that's what you're looking at. I think that they want to play big boy football. They have the fans. They have the national fan base. There's not that many teams that can pull in million viewers. I mean, once you're outside of those top couple of schools. So we'll see what happens. We'll be getting into it. I think we're going to get more information. Like I said, they're rumored not to slow down, which I think is smart, because if you can get some of those other schools and then try to get some type of streaming deal, you might be able to make out. But in terms of other business, USC fires Clay Helton. The dumbest move I've ever seen in the middle of the season. You fire him after 2 games. He's done nothing different. You should have fired him last year or 2 years ago. I looked this up because I see a lot of misinformation out there about Urban Meyer. They went after Urban Meyer in 2019. It was already reported. I have the article up because I knew I wasn't losing my mind because I knew we talked about it on the show. In 2019, USC got a new athletic director from Cincinnati, and he wanted to push for Urban Meyer, who had left Ohio State. He was kind of like their admin or whatever, which, let's be honest, too, as a sidebar, Ohio State has struggled. What's the only difference, Matt? Oh, wait, Urban Meyer isn't there to shadow coach them.
NIL.
No. So, they get an NIL and they all start struggling in 1 year?
Well, no, everyone gets paid as opposed to just all those secret bagman deals.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, he was there on campus all the time. ESPN would be like, hey, here's Urban Meyer at Ohio State practice. It's like, why is he at practice? What's he doing? They gave him that job. As soon as he goes to Jacksonville, all their game planning goes out the window. Like, how are you not making adjustments? I went back to that Minnesota game because I know we talked about the fumble, the head-to-head fumble causing tackle. Minnesota could have tied that game up. That basically turned the game into a 2-score game and gave Ohio State the win. How do you know if you didn't have a competent ref that Ohio State doesn't lose to Minnesota as well? Because they sure as hell couldn't stop Oregon. Minnesota was running down the ball right down their throat. Yeah. And so I wonder how much of it is Urban Meyer. But Urban Meyer's in the NFL. He's trying to prove himself. I really don't think he's going to give up after 2 games. I think, and I'm giving him a lot of credit here, I think that he's seen a lot of the stuff that Jim Harbaugh saw in the NFL, where the NFL is a good boy club. They're like, hey, everyone that's kind of here, they're all kind of related if you look at the trees. Like the Davis brothers, the Rooney family, like everyone kind of knows each other. And so when you have a coach that's going crazy like Harbaugh was, the NFL, if you remember at the end of his tenure, how many rumors there were about him getting out of San Francisco. The owner was sabotaging him. They were saying Michigan would never hire him because he's an NFL guy. Harbaugh's never leaving. Then he leaves, and all those guys are kind of like, Harbaugh sucks. Oh, man, he sucks so bad. No one wanted to hire him. And so now it's like, all right, is he coming back? Every year it seems like there's rumors of him going back to the NFL because the NFL guys want him back. Urban Meyer's the opposite. They don't want him there. So all you're seeing is like a bunch of rumors. It's like, oh, we have some good rumor and sources that Urban Meyer's coaches hate him. I'm like, I think didn't he just hire a bunch of his friends? Like, how would they all hate him?
Well, I forget where I was even hearing it at, but I heard like the funniest thing is going to be like he was already mad about like how the free agency worked. That like he couldn't just bring guys in. They had to like hire like he had to sign some of those free agents blindly.
Yeah,
before he knew.
I did see that report, but it's like okay, he just didn't know the structure. I really don't know. I mean, maybe he does pull a Nick Saban and leave, but you have one of the youngest star quarterbacks. He could really elevate himself. Like I said before, if USC wanted him, they had him. Texas had an offer. They could have threw it at him. He didn't want it. He wanted the NFL. I think he'll give it 2 years at least. Maybe I'm wrong. He doesn't seem like the type of guy that just tucks tail and runs after a couple of games just because a supposed USC gig opened up where, guess what? The administration hates him. They clearly didn't want him. So why would he go from one job where it seems like he's getting negative like press to another job where they're going to be on him the entire time? Like, he already had trouble at Ohio State where coaches were running rogue, ordering, sex dolls to the office and stuff because their grandpa coached at Ohio State. Like, all right, get real. Like, what's going to happen? I don't know. So that's my thing. The USC job, I think, to me, is kind of like Texas, where the culture of the campus, yeah, it's a great football school, but where you're trying to win and you're trying to do all this stuff, you have to push it to the next level. To me, I think they're separate, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think you can have both. If you look at what Notre Dame and what Michigan have been doing, where you have the academic focus and you have the football culture there, and you pretty much just tell everyone like, yo, we're a football school. Texas really doesn't push for that much anymore. It's kind of weird. Like, remember when they brought in Shaka Smart and they're like, we're going to help you get whatever you want for basketball. And they didn't kind of follow through. Yeah. I think there might be too much booster infighting where like Harbaugh, when he came in, he's getting whatever he wants. Now, whether he uses that to his advantage, I don't know. It doesn't look like he looks like he makes some bonehead mistakes. Same with like Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. Like, he's getting all of the support where he's at the point where he's had success. Now you just have to take it to the top, both of those schools. Texas, it seems like every time they hire a coach, even if they're winning like Mac Brown, it's like, we hate you. What are you doing? Like, we didn't win that championship because Colt McCoy got hurt? Get out of here. Like, you got to get rid of, like, right now. Where it seems like the other football schools, they have a little bit of a longer leash. Like Dabo, no one's talking about him losing, you know? Like, no one's calling for his job. Where at Texas, I feel like, I don't know. It's almost like, and same with USC, where it's kind of like the fans want one thing. The administration seems like they just don't care. And I think that's where Clay Helton got stuck. Where Pete Carroll won, but he had all those cheating allegations, and the administration didn't want that kind of stuff anymore. And they've been pretty clear. So to me, that doesn't make it a top job. If you're fighting the administration at those two schools, what are you going to do? So I don't know. What do you think? Who do you think goes there?
I think it depends on how fast they want to get this filled. Like, obviously, they're going to have to do the interim for the rest of this year, which is going to set the program back even further. They're going to have to pay a ridiculous amount of money. I don't know if it's going to be a list of people like Willie Taggart that had some West Coast connections that goes back. It could be James Franklin. Like, I don't know.
Well, I'll go down the list. The biggest one I saw, obviously, Urban Meyer. I don't think it's going to happen. They had their chance. The next one, there was the AD at Cincinnati, he hired Luke Fickell. That's the one rumor that everyone seems to be pointing at in terms of college coaches. I don't see him leaving, though, because I think his dream job is still to coach Ohio State. If Ryan Day really starts to struggle because Urban Meyer left, does he jump to the NFL, which has been a rumor for 3 years? He kind of have stated that goal that he wants to get to the NFL. Why would Luke Fickell jump to California if that job could be opening this year, next year? Cincinnati's also going to the Big 12 now. He has to be licking his chops because he could end up in a division with a bunch of schools like Kansas State that are down. And you're basically in the Power 5 now, so now you can make the playoffs, and you'll be applauded for that. So I just don't think like he's going to be one to jump. James Franklin has been rumored to jump. They keep talking about him going to Florida. Why wouldn't he just wait for the Florida State job if that's where he wants to go? It has to be close, Matt. You want to talk about that? Did you watch a game? Oh, man, I was laughing so hard.
Well, no, I didn't watch the game because it's on this bullshit ACC network.
Yeah, that's ESPN Plus, bro. You can watch that anytime unless you live in the area. Like, I can't watch any NC State games because they're all blacked out, but I can watch every Florida State game if I wanted to.
Because I kept trying to pull it up, and it was like, no, you don't. And I haven't. Which all things considered was probably for the best. In the meantime, I watched Liberty win and was listening to the game call. I was like, okay, like I did what normal people do. They were up 17-7. Was like, this is a game that it should be split. It should just be blown wide open. But one of the best pieces that I saw in describing the game is that Florida State got ahead of themselves. And with where they are as a program, like there's games that like you can kind of toy with your opponent and do some different things that like maybe you want to show the following week's opponent so that they have to game plan for stuff. But like with where they're at right now, they're just not there. Like they don't have the talent to go punch for punch and play cat and mouse with people. They have to just bury them right off the bat.
That was an FCS school.
Yes, I know.
They have the talent to go back and forth with them.
No.
You're drinking the Kool-Aid, bro. You're drinking the Kool-Aid.
You don't.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
They still commit. Hell, you look at Nick Saban chewing guys out playing FCS season. They're blowing them out by 40, and he's chewing their ass. Like, we're not there. We're not even close to being there.
Then you need James Franklin. I'm putting it out there. James Franklin, you have no connection to the West Coast. Why are you going to go to USC? You coached at Vanderbilt. You've recruited in the SEC territory. You want to go to Florida. Your family's already there. Everyone's been talking about it for like 3 years now. They asked him about the USC job. He didn't even say no. Did you see his response?
No.
He said, I'll talk to the administrators about it. What does that even mean? Like, you're just going to go ask for a raise? Like, and everyone's like, you didn't even say no. You just said, oh, yeah, I've heard the rumors. Once I talk to the administration, then I'll make an announcement. It's like, you're going to go ask them for a raise. Like you just said, I need to ask my boss for a raise real quick, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do. Plus, USC didn't even offer him the job. But if his family wants to be in Florida, and Florida's not going to open up anytime, Maybe he can get into Miami. I don't know if he'd want that gig because I don't think going from Penn State to Miami's a big jump up. I think even Penn State to Florida State is pretty much a neutral move. So, like, what do you do if that's where you want to go? They have a high upside. I mean, he has Ohio State now he can't get over. He would go right to having Clemson he'd have to fight over. So it's not like even a better deal. Miami, you have what? Pitt? Virginia Tech? They're not even good. Virginia? So maybe he's waiting for that one. I don't know. But the other one, the last one that I had, and maybe you have other coaches that you want to talk about, Eric Bieniemy. He has ties to USC. And they've talked about him. And so I want to kind of see what they would do if they bring him down.
That would be a move to me that would make sense because that was on a list of schools that it's being rumored that he's interested in. And I think to go from the Chiefs to USC, they're going to be able to provide him with the resources to be successful where like it's not going to look like he's going to have time to have some head coaching mistakes.
Yeah.
Because of how out of sorts everything is. So like he's going to, as compared to like what Sarkisian's experiencing right now at Texas, like they're expecting him to turn Texas immediately into Alabama. I don't know if they bring Bieniemy in, if the expectation is going to be, hey, you're USC. It's Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, fight on. Like I don't see that happening.
USC is just like Texas, man, where if you look at their history, yeah, they have a ton of wins and stuff, but like even in terms of like conference championships, like Texas had 30, but they were no Oklahoma. Texas only has 3 Big 12 championships, Matt. 3. That conference started in like what? The 90s?
Yeah.
So, like, how is Texas that big of a job? I'm going to look that up just to make sure. I'll probably get all kind of weird articles. But, like, USC, like they were really bad in the 90s. I know that they had some other spells where they were coming up. Really, the only blip that was perfect for them was Pete Carroll. Like, I guess that one was vacated. But like they had 2000, they were below. They had the 3-8 year in 1991. They kind of floated around at 6-6, 6-5, 8-5, 7-5, 5-7. Like that was pre Pete Carroll. They're like a 500 squad. So USC is not going to be the team that really came in. They've won 1 Pac-12 championship, which I know, like I brought up Michigan. Michigan hasn't won any, but USC's top dog. They don't have an Ohio State. Texas has an Oklahoma, but realistically, when you're in the league for that long, you should be winning multiple championships. Like at that point, if you're going to be the big dog, or if you're going to be taking like other New Year's Six games, like why are you not playing in more of those? It seems like everyone in the Big Ten can fall into them. Maybe it's because of the money contracts, but like Texas has trouble. Like, give me a break. Texas should not be playing in the Alamo Bowl or the Pinstripe Bowl or whatever bowls they've been playing in, because it's kind of just like a joke at that point. But yeah, the Big 12 started in 1996, I believe. That's what this looks like. And like Texas hasn't even, they have a losing record to like TCU and schools like that. Like, no knock on them, but come on. What are you doing? USC, someone said that it was because it was Stanford. That Stanford and USC always fight about academics, which Stanford is clearly better, but USC should never be below them in football. And then when they get crushed by them, and Stanford's not even good this year. So, like, where do you go from that point? I don't know. But be careful what you wish for. If James Franklin takes the USC job, I don't think that they're that much better than Penn State. Like, no. yeah, you don't have Ohio State, and then you don't have, like, Michigan that you're splitting with. It would really just be Oregon, which is in a different division.
But to me, the thing that I always circle back to is Rich Rod. Like, I know you've always said if he had the extra year at Michigan, there was a chance that he was going to flip the script and be able to like get them over the top. But I feel like if he doesn't leave West Virginia, how different does West Virginia's program look like right now?
And I'll be honest, I don't think he should have left West Virginia.
And there were always speculations that Bowden was rumored to go to Alabama at different points, and he turned it down to stay at Florida State. Like, Florida State and Bobby Bowden are like, they're synonymous with each other. And I think to stay in one place, like Dabo now, I think would be crazy to leave Clemson.
What if he goes to Alabama, though? That's a rumor he played there.
He did play there, but I mean, I think that would be crazy to leave a school that, like, you've already built Clemson up, you've won national championships there. I think it becomes a hot seat because then he steps in and immediately I think he gets fired within 3 or 4 years.
At Alabama?
Honestly. Yes.
You could be right because, I mean, if they're...
The expectation is going to be automatically you step in and you win immediately. Versus if you stay there, like if Luke Fickell, with where he has Cincinnati at, he could stay there now for a long. I mean, talking of coaches that win enough to maintain their job, look at Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. He beats Iowa State.
Not just beats. I called that game. Crushed him.
He wins the game. He's good now for the rest of the year. He could lose 4 or 5 more games after this now. He's not on the hot seat. He'll leave when he's good and ready to leave.
The thing with that, so that's the one thing that I wanted to bring up about the polls. So Iowa State, everyone's like, perfect, top 10 team. They didn't watch them. I guarantee no one in the media watched that game against Northern Iowa because they looked like shit. They don't have the two TV setup that I have, Matt. Because when I watched that game, I thought, Iowa State looks awful. This is bad. Iowa's going to kill them. And then everyone's like, well, it was just a bad offensive game. They moved Iowa State down to like 14th. But then like even the coaches poll didn't even raise Iowa. It's like, what are you doing? Why do you think Iowa State is still so strong? They're going to lose multiple games this year. And then you're going to be looking at whatever. I mean, Oklahoma didn't look good that first week. And then they came back. Texas already got slammed by Arkansas. So like if Texas ends up winning the Big 12 or something, like what do you even do with them? It's like you laughed at me when I said this might be the year where UCLA could get into the playoffs with 1 or 2 losses. Maybe I'm right. ACC looks bad. The Big 12 looks bad. Who are they even going to put in the playoffs? Ohio State already lost. People are saying Oregon. Oregon struggled with Fresno State. They're like, oh, Oregon's such a lock for the playoffs now because USC is so bad. Like they're just going to win the Pac-12. They could lose to Washington. Washington has no offense. Did you watch that Michigan game, dude, by the way?
No.
They were complaining because they kept saying Harbaugh was setting up the play action pass. He only ran 15 passes. They just ran the ball down Washington's throat, and Washington never adjusted. The announcer was getting so mad, he kept saying, well, there has to be a play action pass coming. They're setting up a play action pass. And then they're like, look at Washington's defense. They're ready for the play action pass. He never called it. He called the one drive was like 10 runs in a row, and they kept running until they scored a touchdown. And then the announcer was like, well, that first half only took 58 minutes. Real time. So like they're just running the clock out while they're just pounding you in the face. And the score was 31 to like whatever it ended up being 7 or something. I don't know how many Washington scored, maybe 10. Michigan could have probably scored 60 if they had passed the ball. Although maybe Washington's strength was pass defense. I don't know. I don't know what Harbaugh was doing, but it was like funny to watch. I felt bad. Like if you're a Washington fan, how do you not just feel depressed after that game? Like, yeah, we're supposed to have 2 defensive tackles that are NFL worthy. Our secondary is like they were supposed to be one of the top defenses in all of college, and they just couldn't even stop the run. Michigan couldn't even run the ball last year, let alone getting run all over. So, I don't know. Would it surprise me, though, if Washington went back to the Pac-12 where no one runs the ball and they win out and win the North after losing to Montana and Michigan? I'd not be shocked at all. Because like that's the narrative right now. Everyone's like, "Oh, Washington is historically bad. No one just gets run all over like that. Like that's an embarrassment." And then all it takes is one win for them. They beat Oregon. Then what happens? Because I saw like so many AP writers like when they ask about their rankings, they're like, "Well, I barely ranked Michigan because they've been impressive, but they've played garbage teams." It's like, yeah, but Iowa State is clearly garbage. If they played Washington, I don't know if that would be an upset if they lost. I don't know. I don't know how good Washington is because we haven't played any conference games yet. So that's my thing when we're watching this. Way too early to make predictions. I just like to see the losses rack up. Keep them coming. Let them eat because I want to see these other teams have a chance. Like I want to see Coastal Carolina run the table. How high can they go? Cincinnati, they struggled early. They pulled away at the end. How high can they go? Colorado really blew it with A&M. They should have beat them. What are you doing going for 4th downs? Take the field goals. You guys lost by a field goal. So dumb. And I don't understand it. Kick the field goal. Take the points. Ohio State did the same thing I think I told you, where Ohio State had a chance. If they would have kicked 2 field goals instead of going for it on 4th down, they would have only been down 1 score, and I think that they would have been able to be, I can't remember the exact situation, but I think it was only a touchdown where they could have went for 2 to tie it, but it was already too late at that point. And then Colorado, I told Matt, as soon as it happened, I said they just lost this game. They went for it on 4th. They didn't get it. And instead of just kicking the field goal, they were like on the 10-yard line. They would have been up 2 scores. What are you doing? And now A&M has a chance. They could have eliminated A&M, which would have pretty much left it to where the SEC could only get 1 team in. Because I don't think that even if Georgia and Alabama are both undefeated, I don't think they put a rematch in the playoffs. I mean, obviously, if the rest of the conferences all have 2 losses, maybe we get to that point.
Yeah.
But at this point, I don't know. Like, it's a joke that they jumped Oregon all the way up to number 4. How was their win more impressive than Iowa's? Because Iowa looked good both weeks. Oregon did not look good against Fresno State. Just because they valued Ohio State so high, now that they jumped up miraculously to number 4, it's like a joke, Matt.
I agree. And that's why last week I said, don't get too excited over week 1. I mean, this early part of the year, I think you're adjusting for some of the COVID-related issues, early season bugs, things like that. By the time the next couple weeks settle down, you'll get a better handle on who's available, what teams truly are compared to what people have hyped them up to be. Because you always get the big ticket people of like riding the super highs. And once we start to play and you get into conference, you find out who they really are.
Well, that's like I brought up the NC State Mississippi State game. Last week after week 1, everyone was ready to fire Mike Leach. NC State had just crushed South Florida. Opposite. Week 2. Mississippi State came out on fire, shut NC State down, pretty much eliminated. The ACC right now has only 2 undefeated teams left in the Atlantic, Boston College and Wake Forest, which you know that they're not winning it. And then on the other side, Virginia Tech, Virginia, and Pitt. Pitt has a chance, baby. They're in control. And so, like, you look around, it's like, all right, what's going to happen? Like, James Franklin, he's going to leave, but, like, right now, Penn State's right there. They're the favorite now in the East after the Ohio State loss. I know the loss didn't count against their record, but can they pull it out? I don't know. See what happens. The Pac-12 is also in bad space. Oregon is the last undefeated team in the North. But like I said, would I be surprised if they lost to Washington and Stanford? No. They didn't look good against Fresno. They only won by a touchdown at home. So we'll see. They have to travel to Washington. I'm just saying, don't write that Michigan game off as a big slight about how bad Washington is, because no team is going to run the ball for 300 yards on them again. Not in the Pac-12. Not the way Michigan did it. That was like a weird retro game. But big games for this week, Matt. You have any that you're going to watch?
I'm just going to watch all of them. I don't really have any that truly stand out. I mean, those play Wake Forest, and it should be a get your head out of your ass game. But we will see. My heart has been broken before.
Well, if they go 0-3, they have to fire him. They can't let USC have the upper hand. They have to. They don't. That's so bad.
Absolutely not.
Told UMass. That's whenever isn't that who they play?
No, they're playing Wake Forest.
Shit, when do they play UMass? Or am I just making that up?
You're just making that up. You're thinking of Pitt 2 weeks ago playing UMass.
Maybe I am. I swear to God. I don't even know what the heck's going on. All right, so if they lose a conference game, then yeah, I understand that they're not going to fire them. But I thought that someone had UMass coming up. Oh, they do play them, but it's October 23rd. So yeah, if they lose to UMass October 23rd and they're like 0-7, then yeah, he should have been fired way before that. I had my weeks wrong. I guess I just looked at the non-conference because you know how they put those in. It's usually like the first 3 games or whatever. My big games. Michigan's playing Northern Illinois, and I think a lot of the other Big Ten teams are doing similar. Northern Illinois looked good in their first game, but then last week they lost, so I don't think that would be a contest. But I want to see Michigan State play Miami because Miami lost to Alabama. I don't know how good Michigan State is, but I was texting you. Michigan State's turning their program around. They were so bad that they put in all these transfers. And you're telling me that Florida State can't rebuild faster than Michigan State? If Michigan State whips Miami, then I think that there's a problem in Miami and even Florida State where it's like, how can they turn their team around from getting rid of everybody and then just bringing in transfers and having them rip through their non-conference the next year?
But I think part of it is it's the buy-in. Like there isn't as much of the brand with Michigan State as there is with Florida State. And so there's still, I think, some guys that are there that are having that more entitled mentality. They haven't completely I've joked this offseason about living in the transfer portal, but until you get the guys in the program that you can consistently have that culture built in and kind of carry it up through, you're relying too heavily on outside factors.
That's true. But I don't know. Michigan State, they hired that guy. He had no experience, a losing record. Although that's the same with Mario Cristobal. He had a losing record. Oregon hired him. Now they're saying USC might try to hire him away. Get real. Show me some real wins first.
And there's another guy that, talking about coaches that are better off staying put. He was there. He's at Oregon now. He just knocks off Ohio State. Why would you jump to USC? Don't go. Stay where you are. Be where your feet are.
That's true. I have just some more. Alabama and Florida. Do you think Florida beats them?
No, not even close. They get mollywopped.
What was the other one I had? Oh, Purdue and Notre Dame. Notre Dame looked bad, which I did tell you. That's fool's gold, dude. Don't believe a close Notre Dame game. I warned you. You thought it was a joke. You said Florida State's not going to lose. The next week, Notre Dame was so good. They were in the playoffs. And I said, I don't know. And then they almost lost to Toledo. They should have lost to Toledo. So could you imagine if Notre Dame and Florida State both lost the following week? I'd laugh so hard. I would have spent the last 5 minutes of the show just laughing because I told you. Notre Dame's not making the playoffs this year. They have a weak schedule. They might be able to get in. But you can't tell me the shit that they've been doing is better than Cincinnati. I got Notre Dame to win, though. I don't trust Purdue. And then the last one. To me, this is the biggest game of the week because it's Auburn at Penn State. Auburn has a new coach, but if Penn State, you can't lose to the premier. This is the second premier matchup for the Big Ten. Ohio State already lost the first one. This is the one that Penn State has to win. The Big Ten has to have this win. If they don't, I don't know how you can look at a winner of Penn State or Ohio State winning the conference and saying, hey, they should be in the playoffs. There are other implications too, like if Miami beats Michigan State, even worse. Because then the big win non-conference would what be? Michigan over Washington? Ugh, not good. Not good for the perception of the conference. So I think Penn State has to win this. It's at home. You cannot lose to a first-year coach in Auburn. And if they do, and it's bad, I'll say right now Franklin will leave at the end of the year. What do you think in this one? Who do you have?
Oh, I don't know.
I know you love Penn State so much.
Well, the South doesn't do good when they venture to central Pennsylvania.
Alabama had no problem playing out Penn State.
They didn't have to travel to the north.
Yeah, they did. They played in Beaver Stadium. Don't you remember that? They scheduled it like right after their sanctions.
The perfect time.
They're like, wait, what? What sanctions? We didn't know. I don't know what year that was, but I'm going to look that up. Go ahead.
For as much as I want to see Auburn win, I think Penn State will win by a field goal late.
Wait, what is this bullshit? Alabama and Penn State have a Wikipedia page for their football rivalry?
They don't have a rivalry. Penn State's unrivaled.
Alabama leads 10-5. It was 2011, Matt. I told you. It was like right in the sanctions. Alabama was like, hey, what are you guys doing on September 10th? We'll come up. We'll come up. They won 27-11. Penn State was somehow ranked. Penn State was ranked 23rd. Alabama was ranked 3rd. They did play the year before, 2010, in Alabama, which Alabama won 24-3. Alabama was ranked number 1. Penn State was ranked 18th. I don't know what the sanction years were, but it has to be right around that time, right?
Yeah, it had to have been.
I could be wrong, but it might even have been the year before. But I wish they had like dates on these articles whenever you find them, and it's like, oh yeah, here's the fine that you went to, because I don't remember what year did Florida State play Joe Paterno in that bowl game. That would have been the one.
2005.
Oh no, it was March 2011 is whenever the abuse thing came. So that might have been the year that Paterno was stepping down. So maybe I'll give Alabama a little bit of benefit of the doubt. They wouldn't have known. Yeah, because 2012 is when the sanctions kicked in. So that was the year when Joe Paterno was having the media circus, and they couldn't even beat Penn State then. Give the guy a going away present, for Christ's sakes. That's all I have. You have anything else for football this week?
No, I don't.
I've been trying to keep it between an hour and an hour 20. We're like right at that now. So we're going to be focusing, like I said, on NFL stuff, college football. Matt, good luck this week. Be checking in on Claysburg next week. If there's anything you want us to talk about, let us know. I mean, obviously, we're not expecting breaking news stories like the Big 12 expansion and coaches getting fired, except Scott Frost whenever they get killed by Oklahoma this Saturday. So maybe we'll be talking about new openings. How many openings are there going to be? We could have USC, Florida State, Penn State, possibly if Franklin leaves. You could also have Nebraska. Maybe Brian Kelly leaves. Maybe Ryan Day leaves for the NFL. Harbaugh could be fired. This could be one hell of a coaching carousel. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll check in next week and see how everything's going. But thanks for listening. We'll see you then.